Starting this podcast was an unexpected step of obedience of something that God has called me to do. Through this podcast, I will be interviewing ordinary people who have seen and experienced God move in extraordinary ways throughout their lives. I pray that this will build your faith and encourage you to testify of God's goodness in your everyday lives. Hey y'all, welcome to the Testify of God's Goodness podcast. So I have with us today Bryan and Tabitha Cutlip. You guys can tell me about yourselves. So your professions, your callings, anything else you'd like to share.
Go ahead. I am an electrician, work for the power company, father, husband, son, all the above. We are now leading a church at a pastoring role, so that's a lot for me and for you as well, as far as learning and leading, and I don't know, whatever the Lord wants us to be. We flex and move all over the place.
Yeah.
I guess, you want me to give me your age? Oh, okay. I am 38 years old. Way too old for some of this, babies and such, but
God had a different plan.
I'm Tabitha. I'm a mom of 3, soon to be 4. I worked for 15 years before deciding to be a stay-at-home mom. And right now I'm working to support my husband as we begin this new journey in our lives, this new chapter, and we're excited to see what the Lord has in store for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so how do we know each other?
We've met through the women's group,
Mm-hmm.
having our meetings together, and I knew you when you were smaller at his church when we
Yes.
first started dating,
Yeah.
but he's definitely known you longer.
Yeah.
we were talking about that earlier. I don't Tab says she remembers you as little.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember that. I don't remember those days, but
Yeah.
yeah, so we grew up in the same church. Our grandparents were part of our home church getting that started, and
Yeah.
just generationally. So I
Yeah.
guess we're what, third, fourth generation Christians down the line as
Yeah.
far as
It's really cool to think about.
our church family heritage. But
Yeah. Yeah. And your dad was the pastor,
Mhm.
right? So, I mean, I had started going to that church when I was born.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we know each other.
Yep.
So what parts of your testimony do you guys feel led to share today?
Let me go first. My testimony is my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the perks of being raised in a Christian household, like I said, my dad was a pastor. Mom was a pastor's wife, a mother, leader in the church in her own right. As far as like a salvation testimony, it's I guess officially I was 4 when mom walked me through a prayer and a knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I was baptized at that age and into the church, but honestly, I don't remember a time where I wasn't a believer. Like, I don't
That's
have a
great.
moment where, um, I've grown in it. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess, you start with childlike faith, and you start with just a simple mom and dad said so. I believe it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they lived it, they proved it. It's there for me. But as I've grown and as I've matured, that knowledge has become greater.
Mm-hmm.
So as you mature in age, I'm also matured in spiritual
Mm-hmm.
age and wisdom as well. I mean, still am. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's not done. We grow, to become an understanding of our own sinfulness and what Jesus has done for us. And there are definitely moments in my life where I can point to and say that was a learning time period. Um, my mother passed away. Time period with us, our relationship as we've walked together and have grown to having children. Even now where we're at as far as with the church. So that's a new
Mm-hmm.
level of understanding of what Jesus has done for us, what He's done for me, how He teaches me. Yeah, it's my testimony is my whole life.
Yeah.
It's not just what he's done in them. And I guess that might be true for everybody, but especially for, I think, those of us that are raised in a Christian household, a lot of us, we experience something similar where our knowledge grows as we grow.
Right.
We
That's
mature.
what sanctification is. It's becoming more and more like Christ. And I think that's important for people to hear, because sometimes people think, well, I was raised in a Christian household, I don't have a testimony. Like, I've always just known the Lord. But that in and of itself is like a testimony, and that stands out in the world that we're in.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think sometimes we get, at least I felt bad. Like, I don't have the Lord turned me from this terrible thing and he saved me out of this awful circumstance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a blessing. That's a wonderful thing that I didn't have to walk through those terrible moments.
Yeah.
But sometimes we get, at least I do, get down. I'm like, oh, I don't have that cool testimony where Jesus came in a white horse and saved the day.
Yeah.
He's just always been there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's so good.
For me, I know that I got baptized young. I don't know if I was 8 or 9. My main reason for baptism was I had older siblings doing it.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I wanted to do what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
There were definitely many points after that where I raised my hand during an altar call questioning my salvation, and it was probably in my early teens when the Holy Spirit finally gave me the reassurance that I'm saved. I'm just not living the life. That's what I'm feeling guilty over, is that I'm not walking it. I'm not living it.
Yeah.
And I genuinely don't know that I knew how to. I'd been in a Christian home, but I didn't really see it walked out in the way it was described in the Bible.
Yeah.
So coming into that in my older teens, when we got together, I was given more of a guideline, I think, through his family and his church. It's much less judgmental than some other Christians I had met. So I think I was able to grow through that experience, and it became more my own, especially after my first child, when I had that responsibility and fear for her future, and it became more real and more my own.
Yeah. And I think as parents, that can help us to even, I know, like, after I became a mom, it helped me to understand, like, Christ's love for us even more. Like, I love my children. I would do anything for them, but like, God loves them even more. And I know it, like, when Aiden was born and then he was in the NICU and it was like one hurdle after another coming my way. And I was like, God, like, you have to have this. Like, you love him more than I do. Like, I know that. Like, I'm just surrendering this to you. And he put, like, I remember one time it was like 2 a.m. and Dakota had gone home to be with Madeline because she had never really been away from me for that amount of time. And then they gave us the news, like, okay, we have no idea what's going on. We're going to have to run some blood work. It's going to be another 48 hours that you're going to be in here. And I, like, of course, your hormones after having a baby are just all over the place. I'm not emotional, but after having a baby, like, you can't control it. And I was like, I just, like, went and got my Bible, and I just spent time in the Word because I couldn't sleep. I was so upset. And I didn't want to, like, wake Dakota up either. So I just spent time in the Word. And then one of my nurses walked in and she was like, is that a Bible? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, so you're a Christian? And I was like, yes, I am. Like, I need time with, like, my Heavenly Father right now. Like, I need that comfort. I need that guidance. And she was like, well, do you mind if I pray with you? And so she prayed with me. And, like, I had another nurse who is a Christian, and, like, she was able to pray with me too. And then I was in turn able to pray with her later, because they were, like, trying for another baby. Like, I got to know her. And then one of the janitors, like, I got to know their story and pray with them. So it was like God was using us, and I got to pray with other families that were in the NICU. But yeah, just, it's so evident how much God loves us, and how he, like you, as you guys can tell, like, you guys are expecting another one, and how he is literally, like, knitting this baby in your womb right now, and how he, like, is so intentional with that. So it helps us to know his love.
It does very
so
much.
Well. Okay. Is there anything else you were wanting to share?
That was it for mine.
Okay. So Bryan, when did you know that you wanted to ask Tabitha to marry you? Because I have, like, people, like, I work with a lot of teens that are like, how do you know? And, like, because people say, I just knew, which is like, okay, I get that. But, like, what was the process there?
that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of, so we've been together since 11th grade.
Yes.
You help me with details
Yes.
because we were recommended to each other by
Okay.
by our friends, and it was kind of one of those things like once, I don't know, a few months, once just was, I don't know that we said 10 words to each other the first couple months. We wrote letters a lot.
Oh, I love that.
We shared letters, we passed notes in school.
So
But
that was before y'all weren't texting, like, was
no, there
texting
was
a
no
thing yet.
texting. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
yeah, it was all analog. Um, I think as we got to know each other, so we went on our senior trip. So 11th grade, and then our senior year, we went on our senior trip, and I don't know that I can say like right then was the point.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of relatively quickly, I would say, and after a few months of actually dating, like
Mm-hmm.
actually spending time with each other and getting to know each other, like I was just, I'm sold. Like this is it. I'm in. And so in fact, even on our senior trip, I got our engagement ring. I had to borrow money from our friends.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that part.
From, I guess we were at Aruba. So
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, so I got our engagement ring in Aruba, but it was 4 or 5 years before we actually got married. So I don't know that I can say, yeah, this was the
Yeah.
moment. It was soon. And I mean, part of that, I guess, is, I had a really good example of what mom
Mm-hmm.
and dad, what a good relationship looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was like, she seems good, like
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't any red flags, or like, oh, I don't know that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty much sold
That's
relatively
great.
quickly. I would say a couple months.
Yeah.
And how did you know? You just knew. I don't know. Like I,
Yeah.
I was like, she's, because I mean, I can't say like, oh, I was praying over it, and I wasn't. I mean, at that point in
At
time, I
that
was just a
age, yeah.
teenager. I was. You were good. Yeah, I'll leave it at that way. You were. There was nothing that was funky or weird, and I was in
Here you are,
it.
years later.
But yeah.
I would say it was a few months for me also. I'm an analytical type person and a planner, and I was telling him since in my early teens I had lists.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I grow up, I'm going to have this and I'm going to aim for this and this is my plan. So shortly into dating, he became part of the plan. I was planning him into my future.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew, because I'd talked to one boy before him and I could never see a future. There was
Mm-hmm.
no like, so when our friends recommended us and we actually broke the ice and started talking,
Mm-hmm.
um, it very quickly, like I could see a future. So that's when I knew that he was the one for me.
Yeah. And I think that's important to like have, if you have trusted friends, like trusted Christian friends that are speaking into that and saying like y'all will be great for each other. Now, if you're in a relationship and you're like good, like trusted Christian friends are saying like this is a red flag, I don't like that they do this
Yeah.
or whatever, like listen to that. It's so good to have that wise counsel in your life when you're making that big of a decision. Yeah.
And we complimented each other. Like it wasn't something where we were trying to force the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It was probably a long time before we even had a first fight.
Yeah.
We were both just easygoing people, and it fit. It worked.
It's funny. So I tease her. When I started going to school there,
Mm-hmm.
she was already there, and when I mean, new school, new place, new
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We would be picked up from school, and she'd be walking her little brothers down the road, and we were in the same grade, but she always smiled and would wave at me.
Mm-hmm.
I was shy, she was shy, like we never spoke at all.
Yeah.
But she did that for, I don't know how long you did it, but definitely when I first started school, you were just kind, like it was just because I don't know, that always uh, really stuck with me. But yeah, then
Yeah.
it's funny when I finally started dating. I got home and we were at a sports tournament. And I got home and I told Dad, I was like, "Hey, I got a girlfriend," and like Dad called her immediately. Oh yeah, he's like, "It's such and such." Yeah, how'd you know? I
Oh my
just I
gosh.
just knew. Like I could
That's
just
really
tell.
cool.
Like because I hadn't told them anything about it.
Yeah.
They had seen her like being kind and through the years, and I can't, I don't know. I mean, well, I will say this. So mom told me that she started praying for my spouse before I was born. So
Mm,
God knew what he was doing. Like he put the right
yes.
woman there when she was supposed to be. So
Yeah. Oh, I love
I
that.
I had like to take credit for it. That I was like, oh, but we didn't really. It
Yeah.
just it was the path we
It
were
took our
on, and
friends putting us together.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So, Bryan, in honor of your mom, what was the most important things that she taught you? So let me explain. Hold on, before you go and
Everything.
explain, but like I remember your mom, and I was still pretty young when she passed away, but she like one, I remember she had the voice of an angel. She
Mhm.
really did. She was the sweetest person I've ever met in my life. Like she was so intentional. She was so supportive. Like she was such a genuine person. So that's like things that I remember about her.
Oh, I would say that, I mean, one of the several years ago, and one of my growth opportunities, um, I began to realize, like, Lord, let me love people the way she did,
Mm,
because it didn't matter who, like you said, it didn't matter who you were, where
yeah.
you were at. She just she had no, and it wasn't that she was like love, like our culture talks today, where you can't do anything wrong,
Mm,
everything's affirming. It wasn't that type of love. It was, she genuinely wanted what was best for you,
yeah.
and it was palpable. Like she transferred it. And in a lot of ways, honestly, I still got to spend a lot of time with her growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was an only child for for 13 years. My
Yeah.
brother's considerably younger than I am. Dad worked full time. Dad did the church. Dad took care of our grandparents. Dad was very busy. So got to spend a lot of time with mom and with
Mm-hmm.
her family. And it's just that sense of care. I mean, she was sick for a lot of my childhood as well, and then even part of her testimony, and I don't know that I haven't mastered it. I wish I would. Is she was able to, even though she was hurting, or she wasn't comfortable. She was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, be it emotional or especially physical, she just was solid with it. It never rocked her. I
that's
mean,
wild.
yeah, and especially to somebody on the outs. I mean, being living in her household, there were times where she, like, I don't want to say the mask dropped. It wasn't a mask,
Yeah.
but you could, like, she didn't have to be that
Yeah.
outside of the house. But outside of the house, she was never like, I'm in a bad mood because I don't feel good today.
Mm-hmm.
And even with us at home, there was not. She was, even if she didn't feel good. I mean, we were children, or I was a child, and then my brother was born. But she would deal with. She just handled it gracefully. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it. She instilled in me, looking back, and trying to put it in our own kids. She instilled in me a sense of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You're responsible for your own actions. You are. I've said it in church now several times, and it kind of come upon me. But I think mom parented me with the realization of what I would become.
Mm-hmm.
So the man that I was going to be, that's what she was focused on and leading for.
Yeah.
Um, I was not her best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like mommy's special little. At that time, especially because mom and dad had tried for a long time to have children and couldn't. So I was especially special to them,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't spoiled.
Yeah.
I wasn't. They didn't allow that to. Like, Bryan could do no wrong. No, Bryan did a lot of wrong, and Bryan
Yeah.
got spankings, and Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
So she loved me enough to train me for what I was. I mean, honestly, where we're at now, as far as church, public speaking, playing the piano, music, like, she put me in positions when I was younger to force me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So while I wouldn't say it's my comfort zone by any means,
Mm-hmm.
as a child, she pushed me, go do this. This is, I mean, I don't think she knew the future, but she could see that this is, if the Lord's going to use you, you're going to need these skills, regardless of where you go and what you
Wow.
do. She was very, very wise.
Yeah.
Very, if I could, if there's a person besides Jesus I could model my life after, she would be the one I would pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even like we can learn from that, like seeing the giftings that God's given our children from a young age and then stewarding them, like, because even like we've talked about like the spiritual gifts that He's given us, and like looking and figuring out what that is so that way we can help our kids, because we are raising, like, yes, they're children, but like they're going to be men and women one day, who are going to point others to Christ. So like, how are they going to do that? How can we speak into their life in that way?
And I've seen now, I don't know, again, I don't know how intentional it was, but I've seen it in my mother's family,
Mm-hmm.
and her siblings, her sister, and so extension my cousins, they all, not they all, they've done a good job of that, of their children. They instilled when they were
Mm-hmm.
little the mission they were going to need as an adult. So I don't know. Maybe it was something my grandparents did that passed.
Yeah.
I don't know, or if it's something the Holy Spirit gave them, whatever. But definitely, they had a different mindset than I think a lot of us do today. Where we want our kids to experience everything, give them everything we didn't have, and we want their
Mm,
childhood to be perfect.
yeah.
And they're only going to be children for a percentage, a small percentage of their life. They're
Yeah.
actually going to be adults, and we need to be teaching them for that. So
Yeah. That's
yeah.
so good. Um, So, how did losing your mom at a young age, and then for both of you, to whatever extent you guys want to talk about it, when you lost your sweet baby girl, um, either build or test your faith, or both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Build and test and stretch and break and all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first with mom, and then with mom. I mean, I was at a different spot in life than I was with Charlotte. So
Mm-hmm.
we were not married, so I was 19 with
Mm-hmm.
mom. So still living at home, still a child, um, in a lot of ways. Um, that I would say, in all honesty, I walked through that outside of Tab, um, alone,
Mm-hmm.
in that nobody else around me had experienced it, knew what to say, what to do. I was working, so I wasn't at school anymore. So I there were a lot of times in that where you were the only one that, like, as goofy as it sounds, could fill that void. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Tab was the only one that could be that to me, not mom, but could be the comfort, or the person that I,
Yeah.
like, just needed to be around. And I don't even, like, you didn't do anything super miraculous as far as I'm gonna feel that. You just were you were just peaceful. And there would be times, especially in that moment, where I'd get off work and I'd have to go to the cemetery, and just, like, I was not okay. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to, pause and pray and cry and ask. And I did that at the cemetery in the, in the middle of it. That was
Mm-hmm.
where mom was, so I could take those times. Um, it was right next door to your house, so that was helpful too, as far as, we could. I was going to the same place anyways to see her. But
Yeah.
it definitely, at that time, at the time right around her death, there I wasn't really stretched much, other than my own grief and missing her.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on, um, changes in my family, changes in the church and dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, it her absence became, I'm going to say, palpable. It obviously was. It became a void that I ended up filling in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where it really became, not maybe not as church as much, but definitely in our family. And that was a real struggle for a while. That was probably the first time that I had to kind of maybe run against the grain,
Mm-hmm.
against what everybody else, like, just let this happen, just do it this way, just
Mm-hmm.
sit down and be quiet. I have one instance in particular. I was working night shift, and we were living with my grandmother, saving for a house. And I got home from work like 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was a situation in my family I was going to have to address. Like,
Mm-hmm.
nobody else is saying anything. It just has to be done. And I sat in my truck and just cried for like 2 hours, because, Lord, if mom had been here, I wouldn't have to do this. Like, why is this me? Like, why does this happen? I don't understand this. I don't want to do this. This is not going to be a good conversation. And it just, dealing the emotions of her absence, not her but not her death, but her absence.
Yeah.
That she wasn't here to handle this, or
Mm-hmm.
or it would have been different, if she was. That those and there was more times after that, but each one of those times, looking back, it's built me in that sometimes we have to be the one to stand in the gap.
Yeah.
In spite of everybody else's opinions, so it built a strength. I didn't like it, and I still don't like it. I don't enjoy those
Yeah.
those situations,
Yeah.
but it built a somebody once said, I don't know who said it, but oftentimes people have to be removed from a space, whether it's death or you move on. You have to be removed from a space so that the people remaining can grow into that space.
Yeah.
Because as long as the person's doing a really good job there, I have no reason to grow in that way. So without that person there, others then need to grow, need to improve. So that's been a understanding that's come through the years. Not that wasn't quick and easy. But you want to talk about Charlotte? Would you like me to?
So Charlotte, going back to our firstborn, I was a very nervous mom, being a planner and perfectionist, and I would wake up multiple times throughout the night just to check her breathing, to reassure myself that she was fine, that I wasn't missing anything. We would wake her up to change her diaper at the slightest sign that she needed a diaper change, which you learn later you don't have to do. At that time, I had taken on that phrase that God won't give me more than I can handle, which I know is not biblical. But I clung to that.
Yeah.
Like, I needed that. I needed a reassurance that this situation will be okay, because you have very little control.
Yeah.
As much as you want to control, you have very little control. Over a life being handed to you and having to care for it. And so that was a challenge. So our fourth child, I guess I should say this will be our fifth. Our fourth child, we were excited. We had found out that she was going to be a girl. We'd had her 20-week anatomy scan. And on our way home, we got a call that we needed to go back in and talk to our midwife. And of course, Bryan had an inkling something was off. I was in complete denial. I was like, oh, she's probably just running small or something minor. Like, I didn't even want to consider the thought that anything was actually wrong. So it definitely hit me as a shock when we got the news that not only was something wrong, but there were things majorly wrong. I never thought I would be that person in a doctor's office where they would recommend an abortion. And I remember I think I was mostly numb through that whole appointment where they talked with us. Obviously, that was not a consideration in our minds, but I just felt so numb, like, this is happening. Like, I cannot believe this is happening to us. And I'm sure nobody does, when you think about it, like, nobody's ever prepared for this or wants this or plans for this. So at some point during the rest of my pregnancy, I did a similar thing. I had to do a mind trick to myself where I was basically like, it's in God's hands. I'm going to trust that he's going to fix it. So I have to let it go. Like, there's nothing I can do to change this situation. So I put full trust that he would heal her. And again, that's kind of the genie in the bottle. I wasn't praying for his will to be done, but for the result that I wanted. So I was over the moon that the C-section went well. She was born. She was breathing. She had a nose. The doctors didn't think she would have a nose. And she had an adorable face, despite all the concerns and fears. And we even got to bring her home. Right before they released us, they rechecked her heart, and the heart condition they thought she had, she didn't have. So again, I was like, another answered prayer. Like, she's born, she's survived past what they indicated. Her heart is no longer the concern.
Mm-hmm.
So I went home convinced that she would be a part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they didn't offer her anything. I guess I was being naive to that. They didn't offer to do anything for her as
Mm-hmm.
far as to improve her condition. I was still convinced that we would have one of those miracle babies. So the morning that she passed, I was torn up.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to believe it, accept it. Um, but I can say through that, I kept going back to scripture, kind of like you mentioned, grabbing your Bible. I never lost my faith. I questioned him, like
Mm-hmm.
in his decision and his
Yeah.
will, but I never lost my faith. Like he was still God. I still had that knowledge that she was in heaven now. She was no longer hurting from
Mm-hmm.
the birth defects that she had. Um, so I could always cling to that gratefulness that she, at least despite my hurt, is no longer hurting and in a better place. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful. And still to this day, I kind of come back to that when I'm
Mm-hmm.
hurting, like, but she's not.
Yes.
So I have to be thankful for that piece. I can't say that I see a grand picture or why it happened or
Mm-hmm.
the way the situation went, but I can still be thankful that he's loving her and cares for her and her life had meaning, and we're grateful we got to meet her because we didn't even know we would get that
Mm-hmm.
when she was first diagnosed. So
We'll talk about her.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's several of the situations that Tab described as far as the first getting the news, because we had struggled to have children prior to our
Mm-hmm.
Cassie, our first daughter. Um, so that had been a struggle. That had been some difficulty. Like it took in a couple years. We had
Mm-hmm.
gone through some trials with that, um, and ultimately, God answered our prayers. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and we had three healthy babies before Charlotte. So when Charlotte rolled up, like we were really kind of like, yeah, we got this. This is good.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about. Everything will be fine. So I mean, I forget a lot of details, but that day, especially in the doctor's office, like that was like I remember being a kid when you get in trouble or something happened and you feel like you're tumbling through like
Mm.
the world's spinning around you.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of those moments as an adult where it's like I'm not equipped for this. I don't know
Mm.
what what we need to do. I will say, I mean, mom, mom's perspective. One of the qualities of Tab that's always been that I've appreciated that God's given her is she's always like she's just even keeled. Like
Yeah.
nothing rocks her. She's able to process things, put it
Yeah.
away. She's not super emotional where things
Mm-hmm.
are wild. That was probably the first time in our relationship where she got rocked. She got
For
hit.
sure.
Um, that was a struggle for both of us. I would say honestly it was more difficult after she passed
Mm-hmm.
than beforehand because both of us. I mean, while she's still here and growing, like, all right, Lord, you can fix this. Like, we believe
Mm-hmm.
you can. I
Yes.
trust you can. Um, so you have that hope, and you
Mm-hmm.
have the. I'll say, we did get to. You had the C-section, which is probably one of the most afraid times I've ever been, just because that was new for all of us.
Yeah.
The other children weren't through C-section. The concerns with Charlotte, and all
Mm-hmm.
of the everything that goes with it, but from we got to see the days that she was there. At least was it 4 times I think that she was dying, like leaving,
Mm.
and then she'd come back, and then she'd later on sometimes you stop breathing and she was leaving, and she'd come back, and then like the very first one, as soon as she was born, like she came out blue,
Mm.
like, all right, Lord, we're not gonna get any time with this,
Mm-hmm.
and then they gave her to mom, like for mom to hold, and she comes back.
Oh.
That seemed to be the for all of them. I'd take her for a while, and then she'd stop breathing. Like, give her back to mom, and she's good.
Wow.
So that happened. That happened a lot. And then we got he said got to bring her home. Um, I will confess, like you mentioned, the doctors not doing, not offering anything. That was a joint decision.
Mm-hmm.
We had several doctors meetings prior to that, multiple ultrasounds and stuff to confirm. And was one of the decisions that we made, is we're not going to, considering what the evidence has shown us, we're not going to try to move heaven and earth to like give her a few extra days.
Yeah.
We're not going to make her go through multiple surgeries and try to fix this and try to fix that, because ultimately this is fatal. Like,
Yeah.
this is terminal. It's just the timing. How long is it? Is it a day? A lot of babies didn't even survive birth. So is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a year? Um, it's incredibly rare for them to live longer than just a few hours. So so we made the decision that we're not going to throw every medical thing at her.
Yeah.
We were very blessed in the hospital. The nurses and doctors, like, they understood that, so they gave us basically the royal treatment. They took care of us. They left us alone. They didn't, oh, we got to check your blood pressure every 10 minutes, and they just let us kind of be.
Good.
And it was very helpful. And then even, like, so when she lived hour by hour, they ended like, okay, you're gonna have to take her home. So when you take her home, this is how you'll feed her. They did help us through that. But part of my, I don't know how to describe what I feel. It's not guilt, but it's something I still wrestle with. Is when we brought her home, we had a lot of other stuff going on in our life. We were building a house. We were living in real cramped quarters with all of our other children, other family. There's a lot of other things happening in our life at the same time. And you had just had surgery, so you got to be mom on the couch, and I had everything else, and including Charlotte had extra needs more than a regular baby. So I remember I was standing in the shower. I think it was a Saturday. So she passed away on the Sunday. It was Saturday. I was standing in the shower on Saturday, and I was like, Lord, I can't do this. Like, I haven't slept in like 4 days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to. I can't take care of all of this and fix all these issues. And Charlotte, like, she's not going to get better unless you come down and bring your angels with you. Like, this is not going to change. I feel guilt for that, because it's like quitting. It wasn't, but in the moment, it's like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
This is too heavy. And the next morning, she passed, but I don't. It's not. Like I said, I don't know what to do with it. It's not guilt. It's not shame. It's not regret. It's just, this hurts. Like,
Yeah.
where do I put this? And then, after that time, mom is, now she's crushed because the reality is in. So, while physically the need is not there, I mean, we got our house finished. It's just that whole time, and you all in your church were, we needed you during that time. We needed somebody to just, no expectations, we just care about you.
Yeah.
No work needed done as far as for you all. I didn't have to perform in any way or show up. It just come so we can love on you. But through that time, like, especially as we were building the house, as we finished the house, there were different milestones in that summer where it's like, Lord, I'm just broken. Like, I have nothing left. I have no more energy, no more emotional, like I'm just done. And there were several times, especially one in particular with the house after Charlotte was gone, where it was a really hard job, and it was very labor intensive. And I got done, and I ended up in the dirt, like in front of the front porch on my knees, like the same thing. Like, Lord, I can't do this. I can't carry this house and us and you and all of it. And the message at that time was just get in the truck. Like, you're done for today. Get in the truck and go home. You don't have to carry it all.
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything that you see that needs done. You don't have to do it today. So just one step at a time, get in the truck and go home.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we'll do it. Tomorrow needs. And I mean, it took me a while. I think it took us a while. But once we got in the house and you could settle and be mom, and it kind of, I don't want to say it ended for you. It didn't end for you, but the trauma of that event ended. It's taken me, a year? It was the next summer, so a whole year later, I had another family event that kind of stirred all that up again. And I don't think I really dealt with a lot of Charlotte's things, and even it brought up stuff with mom again. Like, it was the next summer, a year later, when I I had to walk through it, the
Mm-hmm.
emotions and the whys and the I don't know, again, this doesn't make sense. I don't know how to handle this. What do I process? So like, I think that time for us, especially afterwards, um, we've never been a fighting couple as far as, um, we're always, we can work our differences out
Yep.
pretty easily. That was probably the hardest time that you and I've had as far as a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that time afterwards, because she's grieving, I'm grieving, we're working, like trying to still do home, still do kids, work
Yeah.
full time, questioning all the, like I said, it doesn't destroy your faith, but it definitely, like, well, this is not what I wanted.
Right.
This is not the pathway and the decision making process that I wanted or I would have done.
Yeah.
And I thought when we entered into it, like I'd already been through this with mom. Like, I got this. Like, this will be, Lord, I've been down this path. I know how this works. It'll be good.
Yeah.
When we first found out about her, I was like, I don't want to say confident, but we'll be okay. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
I know how this plays out. I've walked this before. I can handle this. Turns out I'm not quite as resilient as I thought I was, but it's different, right?
Yeah.
It's a different situation. If I can speak for you, I mean, that time, especially afterwards, when we got in the house and got it caused you not to doubt faith, but to question a lot, to question us, our relationship, to question your purpose as a mom, where you were, what were you doing the right thing here? Do we need to change directions? Um, it caused us. I don't want to say it caused us to question everything, but it caused us to question a lot as far
Yeah.
as the direction our life is going. Have we made the right decisions? Have we are we being truthful with what we really want? Are we following the Lord with completely? Like, um, yeah, it's earth shattering, and it's so funny. Like, things happen in moments,
Mm-hmm.
and then the consequences take a long time to work through and process and deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that we ever get past it, as far as, like, it doesn't affect us. It's a part of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. You
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
handle it in different ways. Have I spoken for you too much?
There you go.
No, that was good. That was good. Thanks for sharing that.